Hey, welcome. If you are someone who is making a lot of money and you're trying to figure out what to do and whether you're on track to building wealth, this is going to be the conversation for you. If you're thinking about how to invest your kids or what's the right accounts that you want to use, you're in the right place. I'm so excited. I'm going to bring on the stage Lisa J. Stocks, who is an investor, and we're going to have a great conversation. So bring your notepads, pull up, and let's chat. All right, all right. Welcome, Lisa. Can you take a moment and
Hello.
introduce yourself?
Well, I am Lisa J. Stocks, and I'm just a regular person that is striving for financial freedom, focusing on investing, maximizing my savings, staying out of debt, just being on, the path to early retirement and a better financial future.
I love it. I love it. And I think we're all in that space of really just making sure that we can one build what not just for ourselves, for the next generation. So as we jump in, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. So can you share your journey? What pulled you into stock investing, and what keeps you going?
Well, my investing journey started off just like most of us. I started working full time when I was 19. And so I started to be a part of or contribute towards my 401k at my job. Not even really having much of an understanding, but this is what they do. So I gave a percentage and I started to contribute. And that's all I was doing for a long, long time. But after being laid off a few times and just wanting to make some changes in my life, as far as not being so dependent on corporate America, I decided that that is somewhere that I needed to put a lot more focus into, was planning for retirement, planning for my future, making sure that I am building wealth outside of just earning that paycheck.
I love that. So it sounds like with what you're saying is, having experienced that layoff, you kind of got to the point of like, okay, I need to figure out
More than one layoff. That's when I really was like, again?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, and I've experienced a layoff too, so I know exactly what it was like, and being able to make that transition because of that shift in mindset. So for you, like, walk us through, like, what was that moment like? Because you said you've experienced multiple layoffs. So what was the first thing that you did to really start building more of that freedom for yourself?
Um, well, I guess I started first thing I did was I started created a taxable account for myself. Started building that up. Then I had money sitting in savings for myself and my daughter. Got more of that invested. I set up a Fidelity Youth account for my daughter, and a UTMA account. Started investing on her behalf.
Mm.
So, all right, those were like my first steps into doing more. And then I had to go back to the funds that were my original retirement investments from those laid off companies,
Mhm.
and get a handle on what is the performance, what am I invested into, and get a handle of that and find out if there's changes that need to be made in order to maximize the potential growth of that money, as well as in my current role, making sure that I'm making better choices there so that, I'm just always on track to make sure that I am building wealth. That is the goal, that all of my money is making more money.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned a few things. You mentioned a taxable account. So what can you go into that a little bit so the audience can know? So I'm going to welcome Rob and Stock Talk David. Thanks for joining.
So, like I said, my investing journey started when I started working full time, and that was just that, contributing to my 401k. So those funds are for retirement, your true retirement age. You're going to be penalized if you tap into that before 59 and a half. In order to get 100% of your, Social Security, the true retirement age is 67 years old. So once I got a handle on where that was and I made a decision for myself personally, I felt that I wanted other type of investment accounts that I can tap into when I wanted to, potentially to build investment accounts that could bridge the gap if I was able to leave corporate America and just be, focus on my own personal real estate or other endeavors. So once I made that shift, that okay, it's not all about retirement. I need other investments. I need my money growing in other areas, not just sitting in a high yield savings account. That's not enough. That's when I became comfortable and decided to incorporate those type of accounts.
I love that. And so with it, it's like you're not just focusing on one particular account. You're looking at it in a holistic view of like what's actually going to build more freedom for you. So when you think about freedom, I'd love to hear your definition of what does financial freedom look like for you?
Just basically just not having any worries, when something comes up that you're able to handle it. And um that's just about it. I've been through those, I call it the lean years. I've been through like pretty much from my teens throughout my whole 20s, when there were car repairs, when there was, anything that came up financially, it was always a struggle, and so just to be able to, my utilities, my electric utilities up 14%. The car insurance is up. Groceries have been so expensive over the last few years. And obviously, none of us like it, but I'm able to handle it. I'm able to keep up with whatever happens and continue a saving and investing plan. So that's what it means. Just stability. You know, um, First stage stability and then invincibility at some point, real true financial freedom, but financial stability is a step that feels good too.
Absolutely. I hear you. It's all about stability. I mean, being a mom as well is like making sure that we're not just creating for ourselves, but we're creating for the next generation.
Mhm.
And so while we're on that topic of creating for the next generation, I'd love to jump into the topic of investing for your kids. Because I know you mentioned opening the UTMA account for your kids. So for the parents that are out there who's thinking about investing for their kids and they don't know what next steps to take, what would you say is a good route or first step for them to start investing for their kids?
Well, you have to decide what's right for you. Like you're in it right now because your daughter's in college. So you have a better hands-on of was it okay for you to go the route of a UTMA account because that's going to be counted against her as far as her FAFSA and what she could impact her uh, things that she's trying to get as far as aid. Um, so with that, and also a lot of families might be wondering, are they going to go to college? Is that the right fit? So you just have different things to think about as far as the tax implications and what you think is right for your family's needs, as well as if you feel comfortable in having the account in the child's name. So
Mhm.
once I weighed all of those things, I found that a UTMA, a Uniform Transfers to Minor Act, I felt that was the best fit for my family's needs. And so I got started with that. And I'm sorry, what other, am I answering the question?
Yeah,
What
I
else
just wanted
do
to
you need
know
to
the
share on
first
that?
step. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head with
Yeah.
one making that decision and looking at, understanding because that's something like you said that I had to do was when your child has a UTMA account, it's important to know that when your child does go to college or they're applying for a FAFSA, that account will be considered as part of their assets. So it may reduce the amount of aid they may potentially get. That happened to my child, but I was already fully aware of that.
Mhm.
And so those are just some of the things that you want to think about. If you're more of like, what, I don't want it to impact them, then you can go the 529 route. And so I don't know if you mentioned, so does your child have a 529 account?
No, we just
Okay.
have the Fidelity Youth account and a UTMA account also at Fidelity. So Fidelity, I have all of my retirement accounts as well as my daughter's accounts there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Now, so for you, like, what are some of the common mistakes that you see parents making when it comes to investing for their kids that they should look out for?
Well, I can't say that I know too much. I would say I don't even know if it's a mistake, but I just
Mhm.
want people to know that you can get started. You can get started early. You can get started when they are infants, you know? You
Yeah.
have the birth certificate, you have the Social Security, card. You can do it from then, and even, even if it's a very small amount, because I know at that time when you're buying diapers and formula and paying for, childcare and all those things, an extra expense might not be something that you're thinking about, but even small amounts, even if you just start off in those first few years, if you can't do it on a regular monthly basis, maybe Easter, Christmas, birthday, a few times a year. Well, really, the point I'm just trying to say is you don't have to wait. There's this is not something that we're gonna don't wait. And if possible, this is not something we're waiting to do when they're teenagers, when they're getting close to
Yeah.
getting ready for wanting to go to college and wanting to, go to trade or work on whatever they're going to do as far as how they're going to get on their path of life of being able to, um, live independently, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that's one of the things I'll say for it, just to your point of just starting. And I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of people think is that you need a lot of money to start investing, and you don't. When I started investing for my daughter, I was only putting $25 per paycheck, right? And so if that feels too much, then you can always, I mean, you can invest with like a dollar, but whatever you can put into it, the most important thing that I always say is making sure that you do it consistently, almost creating that habit. But the earlier you start, the more you can set your child up for success, whether they're going into college or even beyond that. So I love that. It's definitely something to start. I will say too, as we jump into kind of like the next piece, because there's that. I feel like a lot of people may be in the zone of, okay, where do I start first? Should I focus on myself? Should I start investing for my kids? How do I manage doing both? I'd love to get your take on how you navigated prioritizing yourself versus investing for your kids.
okay. One thing I do want to come back to is what to invest into for your,
Yeah,
for the kids.
definitely.
But I think you had shared some information with me ahead of time, and I think you keep hearing me say, or maybe those that are tuning in have heard me say this before, like take care of your older self. I think that's what you were hinting at when
Yeah.
you were making this question. So I say that because. I think you really need to take a look. Are you on track for your retirement goals? Do you even have retirement goals? And so I say that because I think people are out here, potentially, buying their children's cars, contributing towards their weddings and thinking that they can help with college and all of these different things. And really, are you in the position to do that? Are you on track with, investing for your retirement? If not, I'm sure the conversations are not being had with these kids of, I'm doing all this for you now, but is mommy going to come live with you when she's 70 or
Mhm.
65? Or you're going to be, at what time am I going to be able to come over to your house? And because uh, there's just not so much planning going on. And on this Sunday, I was at my show, my live on Sunday afternoon. I was talking about, the adjustments that are coming to as far as Social Security. I was highlighting a company that has eliminated the match as far as the 401k
Mm.
contributions, and more of that might be coming. These companies are under the same stresses that we are, and
Yeah.
they have issues with earnings. There were several companies that put a pause on it when we were, at the height of C19 and going through all of that,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they reinstated it But you will see in time, I was touching on, there might be longer vesting periods, or, if it's at a 6%, they might lower it to 3%. We just have to be ready for these things. And we have to be ready to pick up the slack in order to stay on track. But
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't even have a goal on what they want to have, and they're not even really facing the fact, or they don't know that they're behind.
Yeah, and you hit a key piece because there are many changes that can potentially happen. I mean, just like we're talking about prioritizing yourself first, these companies are going to prioritize their bottom lines first, right? But one of the key things that you also mentioned was, understanding and knowing where you're headed. I love to talk about being vision focused because many times you may be thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do with my money? And if you're asking that question, part of the reason is you don't have a true direction of what you want your income to do for you. So talk a little bit about, for you, like the vision focus. How did you decide how much you were going to invest in the focus of like prioritizing yourself?
Well, I guess from there, I had to kind of work backwards and just try to say, how much do I have and what is my overall goal? And with that, I think I would say my first step with that was I was more concerned with what is the performance of what I already have invested. Let me get that maximized and growing at a better rate. And then let me over time increase my contributions in order to get on track with my goal once I had a definite one set.
Mhm.
So overall, the general recommendation is 15%, 10 to 15%. So I think we should strive to be in that range, including, potentially your employer match. You don't have to think that that's 100% on you to contribute, but,
Okay.
it all depends on where you're at already. And then you have to work from there. So,
Absolutely. Let's take a quick look at the chat. I want to see some folks. I see Talk Stock David said, oh, I scroll on my end, but can't seem to get that comment on here. But I believe you said get yourself together first. Yes. Then focus on the kids. Absolutely. That's something that, like I said, for myself, was at the time that I was starting to invest for my kids, I actually was paying off debt. So I had to get that in order first, get that out of the way, and then start investing for my daughter. So I'd love to hear from you, your perspective, because that's one of the things too. As women, sometimes we have a lot of guilt around putting money towards our goals first. You mentioned parents spending money on like shoes and weddings and things, and not in a shame way, but what are some things that they can do to kind of get around the guilt around money of prioritizing themselves? In other words, like what kind of mindset do you need to have to really start prioritizing yourself?
I don't know. I don't think I feel, hmm, I'm not sure how to answer that one.
Mm,
'Cause I don't think there should be any guilt behind it. We're all at different stages, and we just have to do what's best. And, I haven't been in that place for some time now. I do remember there were things that I couldn't afford. There were times when I was, hard on myself for having to like take public transportation, and my daughter being outside with me cold,
mm,
at the bus stop and things like that. But thankfully that time is behind me, and um you just have to work through it. There's different stages in life, but you just have to know what is the big picture, what matters in the long run. And sometimes some of that, spending hugely on things that are basically liabilities, it's not the right path. So sometimes you have to just find that balance. And, I'm a person, I love parties. I love gift giving and holidays and things like that. But you have to do it within reason, and everyone's budget is different and everyone's circumstances are different. But it can't be all of that and no prioritizing what's truly important. And that is having security from, your savings and investing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just to kind of add on to that, because I know you're right, everyone's finances are different. And especially as a mom, I have 4 kids. So going through this, I would definitely say from a mindset perspective, you hit the nail on the head, is looking at the big picture. One of the things that I always have like a little phrase of like, is this decision here going to move me closer to the goal that I have, or is it going to move me away from that goal of freedom? And not to
Mhm.
say that you need to restrict everything, but finding a way that you can still enjoy your life now while still building for your future. It doesn't have to be either or, but it is going to come down to your personal financial situation and what's going on for you to make that determination. But it really is a mindset of looking forward to what's the vision that I want for my family and understanding the impact it's going to have, not just on you, but on the next generations as well. So
Mhm.
all of that.
Mhm.
So we're going to circle back. So I know you wanted to talk about the investing for the kids. So to jump back into that topic, what are some things that you invest in within the accounts for your kids with the UTMA?
Um, Me personally, I keep it pretty basic. You can do be even more basic than I am, but I'm doing 80% into funds and then 20% into individual stocks. So we talked about this recently. I think you're doing less on the individual stock end because you let your children only pick one individual stock. But I chose a few that fall into that 20% when it comes to my portfolio. But for that 80% piece, I don't want anyone to be overwhelmed, but once you set up the account, the money has to be invested. That is a step. If you just leave it, if say at Fidelity, if you just leave it, it's going to fall into the SPACs. And that's just basically high yield savings account. You're going to get, almost 4. I think it's 3.97 or something right now. So that's not investing. We want to get into some investments that are going to build over time more steadily. And a basic one that I think anyone could get started with is the S&P 500. And so a choice to get exposure to that, well, a couple you can do like an FXAIX, VOO, SPLG. There are many low cost. There's an expense ratio that's associated with these type of fees, but there are several that are low cost and give you exposure to those top 500 companies. And that could be a start. There are definitely other things to mix in there, but we're not going to go deep into that, I don't think, today. But yes, that is something that has steady growth and diversification, just kind of everything built in there for you.
Okay, good. Because you answered the next question, I was going to have to let the people know why you're choosing the S&P 500. So just to recap, diversification, again, low cost piece associated with that, with index funds. And I always like to say it's a good place for beginners to start, because a lot of what I hear is like, how do I choose stocks? And I'm like, well, if you're a beginner, you really want to just get in there, get exposure, and not worry about having to analyze individual stocks. Once you get some experience under your belt, then certainly, being able to, for your specific goals and your finances, then veering into looking at the individual stocks.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Awesome. And so how do you invest? Because I know we talked about what accounts, what you're buying. I don't know if you touched on the frequency. Are you dollar cost averaging? Are you buying when stocks go on sale? Like, what's your process?
For which account, or just
For yourself or for your kids? Yeah.
In general, I would say, just dollar cost averaging, but I'm a mix. I'm a mix when it comes to my own personal portfolio, especially my growth portfolio. I stick to a regular, schedule dollar cost averaging. I'll incorporate some stretches of times where I'll do a particular challenge. Where it's like right now I'm doing an 11-week stretch of time where I'm doing $10 daily into NVIDIA. And so by doing those little extras, I can give a certain investment that I want to build up um, that extra attention. So then after that, I might bring it back down to a weekly investment, not, daily any longer, in order to build up another position. But then there are others that are just on the regular my usual set regimens. But then, like I said, I'm a person that will buy the dip. Back in April, I think it was that the Sunday after Liberation Day.
Mhm.
Leading into that next week, when I thought that the stock market was really going to be pulling back either that week or the week after, which it did significantly, I took a few $1,000s and did some extra investing into several positions in order to take advantage of that dip. And we've recovered 20% plus, I think, since that significant dip that we took back in April. So
Yes, I love
it
that.
was worth it.
And the key piece, because if you're a long-term investor, I just want to remind the folks, if you're a long-term investor, the daily fluctuations and noise is not something to worry about, especially if you have a long time horizon, meaning you're not planning to take that money out for 20, 30 years into your retirement. So as she explained, just dollar cost averaging, putting small amounts on a consistent basis over time is going to be your best bet. Just, one, you can put it in your budget and budget it out for that. But don't pay attention too much to the noise that happens on a day-to-day, because there's a lot of fluctuations. So we have a question in here. This is from, sorry, my screen, I'm not wearing my glasses. Are international ETFs good investments?
Internet. Okay, so you have to find a balance overall, like what I was just referring to back in April. Back in April, even earlier, even before we got to that Liberation Day issue, international funds earlier in the year were doing better than, the S&P 500 or, a total U.S. stock market, just because of all the stresses that we were having. But overall, you zoom out to 5 years, and those international funds do not perform as well. So there's going to be time frames when they are outperforming, and that's your choice. I wouldn't of how you want to create a balance so that when there is something that is kind of pulling back in your portfolio, that could be something that is thriving a bit. Me personally, I just focus on getting international exposure from the same companies like Apple, Nvidia, and there's kind of built-in international exposure in that way. So I have not incorporated any international ETFs into my portfolio, but that's just personal preference. I don't see the need for it, but at times they will be outperforming. So it's something that you can incorporate for diversification, but I don't think it's needed on a large scale as far as what you have invested in your portfolio. So, Tashika, what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, for the same, I don't include it within my portfolio. I have to go back. I think I do have
You're breaking up.
some international.
The audio was
Can you hear
breaking
me?
up there a little bit, but I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I'm kind of the same. I don't invest in international ETFs as well. I like to just keep it pretty steady. FXAIX, have some bond funds in there as well. That is something that I'm looking into, but currently my portfolio does not include that. All right. I want to jump back into, because I know also we talked about with the 401k plans, and this is something that I know when I started investing, kind of similar to your story. You work in corporate, they tell you that investing in the 401k plan is good for you. You can save for retirement, but I don't think a lot of people understand exactly what they're investing in. So I'd love for you to talk to the folks about what is a target date fund, and kind of what are some things that they should look out for as they're investing in their 401k plan.
That target date fund. Um, I just shared a video for that person that was asking that question on my side about a couple of international funds that you can consider. Um, that target date funds. So it's an all-in-one investment portfolio that companies will most likely default you into when you start off. And so you'll be put into the one that corresponds to the closest 5-year increment of when you're going to retire. So they're set up like the 2025, 2030, 2035 funds. So, and they're just, kind of just like an ETF, a basket of investment choices that adjusts automatically over time, becoming less aggressive as you get older. So there's supposed to be a safe, easy way for people to invest. One thing I want you to consider about them is that you might be automatically defaulted into this, but you have the option, and there could be lots of other things that you can invest into. Usually, if it's a 401k, you are limited to, some specific things. But I know in my personal experience, once I had the mindset and I asked about my plan, like we just were talking about FXAIX, an S&P 500 mutual funds was an option for me to invest into as opposed to the target date fund. And I don't like target date funds, and I hope that more people realize that they can ask and inquire and take the time to figure it out if there's something else that you can be invested into, because they are just too conservative in my opinion. I mean, even for someone in their 20s, 30s, I find that they are too conservative the way that they are built, and I don't understand why they are structured the way they are, because you could easily invest into the S&P 500 and choose a few blue chip stocks and be doing so much better than to be in that fund. I looked it up last night in preparation for this conversation, and there's no funds out here that are outperforming the S&P 500. And by doing what I just used that as an example, by doing a 60 to 80% foundation into the S&P 500 and then mixing in a few other things for additional growth, you most definitely will be outperforming the funds drastically.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the other things to add, especially for myself, because like I said, when you're investing in your 401k, that's the first place your company will automatically dump your money into. And one eye opener for me was the fees that was being charged. I had no idea until I was learning. It's like, oh, go check your portfolio. Luckily for me, my company at the time when I was working in, they did allow other fund options that I can invest in. So I was able to get into an S&P 500 index fund within, I think they were with Fidelity, I believe,
Mhm.
that I was with. So that's definitely something to look at, making sure that those fees are there, because I know so many people be like, oh, I'm investing in something, but they don't know where they're putting money into their 401k, but don't necessarily know where their money is going as well.
So
So you kind of touched on this. Oh, go ahead.
I wish I had stressed that more. You got poor performance and high fees. It's just your money just being eaten away, and it's just sad because you, whether you're moving from job to job or you're there for a long stretch of time, so much money. I know in my own personal experience and the few people that have shared with me, so much money has been left on the table over these years of being into these poorly performing funds and those high fees. So let's move on. It's a sad situation, and people need to really know how to get out there and advocate for themselves. Because I think a lot of people think I work at this prestigious company or this university or this, that, and the other, and that their retirement is the people, the fund managers, whatever retirement brokerage company that they use,
Mhm.
that there's no worries, like they can turn a blind eye to it, and they know how to do it, and there is no one out there advocating for you and do it.
Yeah.
They're a part of what they're trying to do is also to make money, and by you being in those
Yep.
funds that have those higher fees, what it boils down to, it's simplicity, and that's what they can present to the company, but it's
Mhm.
also building for them. And I tell you, we have to get out there.
So we have a question here from Sock Talk David. How often should you check your 401k portfolio? And do you think most people even know how to view what their 401k is invested in or check the performance?
Mhm. Well, I'm a weirdo, so I'm constantly checking everything. But I think at a minimum on a quarterly basis. What would you say?
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
the same for me. I was checking on a quarterly basis, just making sure that the money that I was putting in there, that everything was going accordingly. But then I was
Mhm.
also I actually would set up automatic annual increases to my contribution. So like 1% increases around the time that I got like a performance increase. And so just to make sure that all of that was being set. But yeah, definitely quarterly,
Mhm.
and then making sure that I was increasing that amount so I can get the maximum match on my
Yeah.
investments.
So I recently, it's just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I met with someone that wanted to have one-on-one conversation with me. So they definitely knew why we were meeting. They requested this conversation. We planned it, and it taught me something. I need to do better about giving people the steps on how to be prepared for the conversation with me. Because I
Mhm.
asked her, okay, so what is the performance of a particular, retirement account that she has? What is the performance? What are you invested into? She didn't have an answer for either one of those questions.
Mhm.
So that was that's a huge problem right there. You have to know. And there's no and if you don't know what the performance is, that's telling me that you don't have a standard. You have to set the standard, and I want
Mhm.
you to make sure that your portfolio, if at all humanly possible. I know sometimes, with our retirement accounts, we are limited into what we can invest into. So with
Mhm.
that, if there is something in there that has a better performance that you can be invested into, I want you to know that what the options are and potentially make that shift and move over to that. But if you don't even know what you're investing to currently, if you don't know what all of the investment options are, if you don't have answers to those questions, then that tells me that you are not on track. So I actually need to reach out to that person that I just mentioned to see if she's gotten more answers, because we could not get to, really dig into what she wanted to look at, because there were some things there. There were some things
Yeah.
missing.
And I think definitely just to kind of tag on that question, like review the statements. So you'll get regular statements. I know with my organization, I believe when I had set it up, I was getting them emailed to me. Some may come in the mail to you, but even logging into your account and just going, most it's pretty standard across. I know I have Fidelity and Charles Schwab, but it's pretty standard. You'll see like statement, document, you'll go in there and you can actually open it up and review to see the performance, what's been going on over the quarterly basis. So first place, at least just go in and check the statements just so you can understand what's actually happening, because awareness is the main thing. Like you don't want to be investing in something that's eating up a lot of your money with high fees and then not really understanding what you have your money in.
Mhm. And I was there. I was in a target date fund over at Empowerment. It
Mhm.
had 0.90% fees and poorly performing as compared to the S&P 500. And this was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And and that's what I was using as like a standard to say, hey, okay. So if the S&P 500, we just had a year of 25% return,
Mhm.
where is this? I use that as a standard. I recently went to Fidelity in person to set up a new account, and I talked to someone while I was there. And you have to have you have to go with some insight and knowledge so that you know how to ask a question. We were talking about some different funds, and I said, okay, I want to let's first look at funds that over the last 5 years have a minimum of, let's say 95 to at least 100% return. And he was nodding his head and he's like, oh, none of these, And so I know that that's my standard. And I'm saying 5 years, 100%. I know that I can achieve that because I'm doing it in so many other places in my portfolio. So I need to make sure that I'm continuing to get that on track. That's to some people that might not even sound impressive for 5 years, but if you're people that know, it might not sound impressive too, but people that don't have a standard, you'd be shocked at the rate of return that you're getting and what I feel that you should be on track to achieve, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I think, I'm sorry, there's a question in here. Any advice for people who have their 401k going into a money market account?
I'm not familiar with that.
I don't think I've seen.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Most of the companies that I've worked with, they've generally dumped it into a target date fund. I've not seen any with that. But if it is in a money market account, you want to make sure you put it into something where you are able to invest it in and get a decent return, because money market, it's not the same as actually investing in.
Yeah, my money in market account, it's 3.5 or 3.6% right now. It's nothing impressive to talk about. So yeah, I know I'm not building wealth. I'm glad for the interest, but yeah, that's not my avenue for building wealth.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so let's talk about, it's kind of on the same 401k, because I've made this mistake early on in my 20s. When someone is either laid off from a job or they've moved different companies, what are some things they need to consider when they have an old 401k with that company? Should they cash it out? Should they roll it over? What are some things that they can consider as they are transitioning?
Well, this is what I've done. Okay. I've dug into what if I leave it there, what are my available options to invest it into? If those are not sufficient and in line with my needs and my goals, then yes, we're going to have to roll it over into another IRA that will give me complete flexibility to invest into, to get me on track, to have the flexibility to pretty much invest into almost anything other than like Bitcoin and, some random things that I'm not going to have access to at Fidelity. Then, from there, I'll know how to get my money on track to be growing. Because if those limitations are holding me back from the growth that I'm trying to achieve, then yes, definitely have to make those steps. And you have to do it in the right way. For example, when I had a large sum of money at Empowerment, I contacted Fidelity. I opened the account at Fidelity. I then, got back to Empowerment, gave them the information, and, everything's seamless so that, I'm not creating any tax implication or anything. It was going from that IRA account over to another. And from there, I then had the flexibility to get started. I had to then reinvest all of that money once it got there and get it into the places where I knew that it could thrive.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that in that tail end, because similar thing, when I'll start with when I first, in my 20s, I switched jobs, and I really didn't have an idea about what to do with my 401k. So I literally just cashed it out. I think it must have been like 2000. And then I did start up investing in the 401k at my new employer. But had I known then what I know now, I would have left that money, rolled it over into the new account. But you also mentioned an important thing that I want to note, because I was laid off a couple of years ago, and I did do the option where I rolled it over into an IRA. What I wasn't aware of, but again, this is why you check your account, is what I wasn't aware of is that the money transferred over, some of it was automatically invested, like in the matched funds, but there was a good portion of my money that ended up in the SPAXX money market fund account. So very important that when that money rolls over, you go in there and you double check and make sure that it is invested. If it is not, make sure you're finding the funds where you want to invest that money, because not even with that, I think this happens just in general. When people open Roth IRA accounts, they're putting money into the account, but they don't actually invest the money, and it's been sitting there for years and you're not making any money. So please, please make sure that if you have a rollover or if you're opening an account, make sure that money is actually invested.
Yes, you don't have to do it all in one shot, but you have to, you know, in time. Because someone asked me, I think it was this week, someone asked me, did I invest all of the money once I moved it from empowerment? Did I invest it all in one shot? And I was like, no, I took my time. I took a few months to do it. You know, I was doing larger investments. You know, it definitely wasn't $10 a day.
Exactly.
But I made sure over time to figure out. I gave myself a little time to think. I gave myself time to potentially see if there was any pullbacks that I can go heavier on. But yeah, I didn't know that this needs to be said, and I've heard other people say it, and yeah, it's something that needs to be said, to make sure that it gets invested and not just sitting there. And I've even encountered this in person. I was at Fidelity again. There's a Fidelity in the next town over from me. So when I want to go in person, I can. So I was at Fidelity and I was at the counter and talking to someone, and a lady came in with her son. And he seemed to be like maybe a 30-year-old man, but he had special needs. So his mom was with him and they were depositing a check. And I overheard their conversation, and, you know, they put it in, and it's just going into that, you know, that XPAX, and none of his money is invested. None of his money is invested. And she was like, oh, I'm just going to deposit the check next time. And I wish, you know, obviously I couldn't say anything, but I wish I could have just said to her, like, just put all of his money in FXAIX until you come back and can figure out some more things.
Right.
But you know, it's just,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I also want to kind of jump on that. So with I guess some of the reasons of why people may withdraw from their account. But talk through, so before they do that, before they decide to reach into that account, what are some alternatives that they should consider before thinking that they need to tap into their 401k?
I would say consider taking a loan and paying it back, at least making that plan, not just tapping in, taking the penalty and going about it that way. Now, I'm trying to think from the perspective of someone that, you know, may not have the resources and flexibility that I have today. So I would say, you know, if you don't have available credit, if you don't have the credit score, potentially the buying power or options in order to do what you need, I would say that is an option that you can do. But then obviously, you know, you're paying it back, but you're paying back yourself. At all costs. I would just try to avoid it. Because those thousands of dollars now, what they can grow to in the future, it's just really sad to think of you're losing the potential of the power of compound interest. And I don't know what else to say, because I know that I've heard people say, you know, for, you know, heating issues, air conditioning, you know, usually it's something that costs several $1,000s. They're probably even taking out more than they actually need. But I've run into those problems, but thankfully I've been able to find a way to deal with it without doing that. And sometimes it was a matter of taking on debt, but I'm glad that I never tapped into my 401k and looked at it as my emergency funds and looked at it in that way, even though I think the issue is for most people, that's the largest sum of money they ever get started, they ever see building for themselves. And then when they need something, they want to go and draw from it. And we need to get that, money mindset out of our heads and realize we need emergency savings. We need to establish our credit. I definitely have projects that I'm depending on credit to deal with. Like I did a quite expensive fencing, project, and I ordered the materials from Home Depot, but I was able to, when I know that I'm going to buy a substantial amount of materials for a certain project, then I have a Home Depot card. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to figure out, I'm going to call them. I'm going to be figuring out, okay, do I have an 18-month first? If I spend a certain amount, I'm going to be tapping into those type of things in order to have those interest-free periods so that I can be going at it. But yeah, I do incorporate using my credit in order to do things like that. But just real, you have to sit down, realize your goals. Most of us, like I said, I feel like we are not ahead of the game when it comes to our investments for retirement, for whatever our goals are. So how then can you take thousands or, whatever amount from it, take on that penalty in order to deal with whatever the issues are today? So.
Yeah. And I love that because I think you hit a couple key points there. One, mentioning the emergency fund, and of the experience, I've done all the mistakes you can think of. Taking money out, cashing out my 401k. I have taken a loan for my 401k, and one of the things that I will add on to that to be mindful of, because it was a shock to me of I took a loan out, I was paying it back, but then I ended up leaving the organization. So in that situation, what's going to happen is you're going to get a nice little letter from them that's going to tell you to either A, pay it back. And if you can't pay it back, then it will be considered like you've withdrawn it, and then you will be have to deal with the taxes and penalties associated with that. So that's something that you want to be aware of, because whether you leave your job or you get laid off from your job, you'll have to then, in that situation, figure out how you're going to pay that money back so you're not hit with those fees. But the key thing here is, making sure that you have that emergency savings saved up, whether it's 2 months or the better.
Excuse me, audio is breaking up a little bit. You're a little frozen, a little glitchy, but it seems like it's coming back now.
Okay.
Yes.
If I'm talking, can you hear me now?
I hear you clearly now. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. But again, just making sure that you have those savings set up, because you don't want to be so concerned with what's going on in the stock market. You want to be able to have those savings. So if emergencies do come up, you have the funds to be able to take care of that without dipping into your retirement. I think for me, the lesson was, after I kind of calculated, compound interest is a powerful thing. So once you understand the power of compound interest, you're not going to want to dip into that fund. You're going to want to find other alternatives that will allow you to service your goals while keeping that money growing for you. So yeah, definitely something you want to think about before actually starting. I also would say, don't let it hinder you from investing, because while I was building up my emergency fund, I was only putting 1% into my investments. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, Lisa. Like, when you were did you build your emergency fund first? How did you navigate building that while investing at the same time?
Well, I had gotten to a few years ago after I got laid off the first time. I had been with that company for a long time, and my notice of my end date, they gave me 1 year and 3 months notice of my end date. So with that, I wish all the experiences were like that. They were not.
Wow.
But with that, I got a significant severance and retention. And so I think that that was kind of my start to being able to have a higher level of financial stability. Because, and then another thing that happens unexpectedly was just dealing with C19 and just not being able to go anywhere. And, it helped me to build savings and just eliminate debt. I wasn't spending, I wasn't doing anything. We couldn't do anything. So between all of that, I don't think once all the debt was cleared up, then before that, before these more recent years, I just stuck with. I wasn't doing additional investing. Wasn't doing the investing for my daughter and the taxable accounts. I was just doing the 401k contribution. So with that, I just stuck with whatever was coming out of my paycheck, and that was that. And debt repayment, I was working on that independently. So I was never in a place where I was in a really had to put thought into making a balance of, am I going to pull back on my investing in order to focus on debt repayment? I never kind of ever thought like I'm going to go and decrease my 401k contributions because my debt is getting too high. So I never went through anything like that. But thankfully, I've stuck with it. Even when I was on bed rest with my last daughter and things like that, I've never interrupted as far as contributing to my 401k and whatever investing plan that I had at a particular time.
Yeah, I love that. And everyone's journey is different. I love that you're saying that you didn't kind of pull back on that. You found a way to balance both. And that's like similar to my journey as well. Like, because once you understand that power of investing, you'll understand why it's important. If you can get something in there to start investing while you're balancing your other priorities would be beneficial as well. So going into the chat, hey, it's Chocolate Drop. Thanks for joining. I love your Nightbot, by the way. It's in here. It's like, let's get this money. Awesome. I saw a comment pop up. Your green thumb. Great topic, ladies. Where do you start investing? Do you have any book recommendations, etc.? I'll let you start with that one. I have a book recommendation, but I'd love to hear yours.
Oh God, no, you give the book recommendation.
I'll do the book recommendation. You can do
I'll answer the other part of the question. So where to get started? So if you're not working for a company that has a retirement plan, potentially a match, then if you do, then that's where I would start. If you don't, I would contact a brokerage company, for example, Fidelity, and talk to them about opening a Roth IRA in order to get yourself on track for investing for retirement. That's step one. And then in the future, if you want to go on to do something beyond that, you can do that. But if you don't even have that going on yet, retirement investments to have something to draw from in addition to potentially Social Security, pensions, whatever you might be having coming in after you're unable to work, create that. And if that's the start and finish, I'm okay with that. We don't have to go on to doing, taxable accounts, trading, and doing all these other things. Don't think that has to be everyone's path. Just investing into a Roth IRA and something that grows steadily. There's maybe, dividends that are automatically reinvested and building. Just start there.
Awesome. I love that. Before just to go a little bit deeper with can you explain to the folks what is a Roth IRA and the benefits of that?
Well, it's a tax advantage account, and it's a way, I don't know the percentages offhand. It's a way for you to plan for that, your retirement. if it's not built in for you. And I know that I didn't realize how many people are working in industries and under, these circumstances where it's not built in. So
Hey, awesome. Now jump in with the book recommendations. I'm going to give two book recommendations. I'll say the first book that I read on my financial journey was Millionaire Next Door. This is a book that's really going to help with the mindset and seeing almost a way of like how people actually build wealth. That was powerful for me because what I thought building wealth looked like or being wealthy looked like was totally different. So that was a good mindset shift. The second book that I would recommend, especially when it comes to investing, is Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. This is one of those books where I feel like it's broken down so easily that anyone can understand. And so those are the two that I would recommend because they've definitely helped me on my journey. I don't know if you've read any of those books as well.
I have not read either. I'm an audiobook kind of person.
They may be on audiobook. When I got them, I was
And
like very, very early when I was in like my late 20s, 30s. And I picked up those books, but they may be on Audible.
yeah, but a lot of, my my money mindset and the path that I have been on, I can't say that it's been inspired by a book.
Mhm. All right, as we wrap up, we're almost about at the hour. I just want to kind of go through a couple more things with for you. If you could go back to your younger self, what's one piece of investing advice that you would have? What would it be?
Invest sooner. Really understand that and focusing on investing, understanding your investment choices, realizing that time is such an asset. It's so powerful. And just realizing that, 5 years, 10 years, it really makes a huge difference on the amount that you are going to need to invest to achieve the same goal. So with that, I would just say that, take it seriously, encourage, encourage yourself if you're not there, encourage the people around you. Just make sure to take it seriously because things are changing so drastically. And yeah, we need to have that nest egg, that cushion to be able to live comfortably. And so yes, invest early, invest often.
Invest early and invest often.
And,
Awesome. Yes,
and,
I would agree to
really
that as well.
make sure you're maximizing the performance of your investments. I'm not saying to be out here, don't be overly aggressive. Another thing, let me just share this. I know we're at the hour, but I just want to say
Oh, you're fine.
that don't think that don't let anything hold you back. Don't think this is too, I don't have enough money, this investment is too expensive, or I need to go and get into this penny stock or this random crypto. Don't think that you have to do those things. Start off with the basics, and then from there, if you want to dabble into those things, do it on a smaller scale. But don't feel like I have to buy the stock that's $5 when you can invest $5 into the S&P 500, into Nvidia, into Amazon, into, Apple, Microsoft, Google. Be consistent with it, and don't think that you have to find the next best thing in order to, build wealth. And just because you can buy a full share of one thing for $5, why not just focus on a quality investment and go about it that same $5 or $10 at a time if that's what fits into your budget? I just want you to just approach investing as something that is that important. Just no excuses.
Love that. Sorry, guys, I minimize my screen here.
Oh, yes.
Technical difficulties.
Consistency beats perfection, and wealth is built one decision at a time. And just I've gone through these places that I was just describing about, oh, this investment is expensive, and I don't know this, that, and the other. But I had to put that all out of my head. What's going on? Where's Tashika?
I am trying to get this minimize screen, but it does
Okay.
not want to let me go back.
Okay.
It's having you take over the show. Let me see if I can switch modes here, because I am got a
Well, let
lot.
me just give a couple of examples while you're trying to get
Yeah.
that going. Okay, sometimes companies have stock splits, and that brings their share price, down from thousands per share down to hundreds, for example. It's just a matter of they're just splitting it up differently, like just like think you go to eat cookies. Is the serving size one cookie, or is the serving size 3 cookies, or a slice of pizza? Is it one big pizza, or is that pizza in 8 slices, or is it in 12 slices? However you can think about it. So when I first started investing into a few companies that are in my portfolio that I've been building up for a few years now, it was before they had a stock split, like Tesla, I think Google, and a few companies. They were, say, $3,000 a share, and then they came down to 100 ish, and so I didn't wait for them. I'm glad. I looked back. I think I gave the example of Google recently. I think it was like $2,800 when I first started investing into it. But I didn't have to wait. Tesla was like $1,200 a share. But I don't have to buy a whole share. I had to get that out of my head that that's too expensive and I need to go over here and focus on whatever. No, no. Even Bitcoin. Bitcoin was, tens of thousands of dollars. If I want these things in my portfolio, it doesn't matter. If it's $5, stay consistent with the $5. Stay consistent with whatever you have. And in time, I have a $10,000 position into VTI, built $10 at a time, never more than $10. And I didn't do that for that. I was doing that. I only had my YouTube channel for 2 years. It took me more than the 2 years to build up that position. Everything that I share, nothing that I share has anything to do with YouTube. It's just really what I was doing. I just, came to the point when I started the channel, I'm just sharing what I've always been doing. And so I didn't know when I started that investment that I was going to keep it up so long. But now I'm happy that I did. And I love to share that one in particular because it really shows people like, oh my goodness, like it's the consistency. And so,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that gives people insights as to how they can just be consistent, starting small, and it really just about building that habit. And then, like I said, the beauty of that compounding interest over time. You said you started with just $10, right? Was it $10 you mentioned?
yeah, I do that one $10
Yeah.
daily.
So, I mean, just that small amount is not a lot that you can build up that position. So I love that. All right. Thank you for holding it down during the technical difficulties.
Yeah, I wasn't going to sit up here just on a big screen not talking about anything. Listen.
So where can people connect with you and learn more about your work and investing in the stock market?
Well, on here on YouTube, Lisa J Stocks, I do have a link tree in there that'll, give you my email address, my Instagram, and things like that. And there are a few other referral links that you can find on my page for investment platforms that I use on a regular basis, as well as my affiliate link for KGU if you're interested in joining that, learning about options and other elements when it comes to investing.
Love it. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on, sharing your wisdom and your story. I love the information, and not just information. One, I hope you guys in the audience feel the energy and the confidence to be able to go out and take that next step to start investing. And remember that you can invest with a small amount. It doesn't have to be a large sum. The most important thing is making sure that you are consistent, building the habit. as well as making sure you're taking care of your financial priorities, like building that emergency fund, so that you're not getting shaken up by the market. So please make sure that you connect with Lisa. Her links are going to be in the description. I'll include those affiliate links as well. You can always find me at Jama Wealth. And that's it. Until next time, here's to your financial freedom. Bye.
Bye.